Okay, thank you so much. Just started sharing my screen. If I can get a thumbs up that's okay.
Yes, looks perfect.
Fantastic. Thank you. And hello to everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks so much to Dina and the team there and all of you for coming and hearing about our experiences. I'm Jill, the Managing Director of Food for Soul, joining from New York in the United States. And I'm going to be sharing with you today a little bit more about what Massimo says, this crazy idea that launched our nonprofit Food for Soul in 2015 during the Universal Exposition in Milan, Italy. From there, share more about our 3 pillars of impact and outcomes of the Refettorios model and global network. And then hopefully successful in sharing a video with you all that takes you inside one of our Refettorios. I always like to start with a question. What does feeding our future mean to you, to your family, your friends, in your community? And what is required to feed oneself, others, the planet, and how do we stay in ecological balance? How do we move beyond food seen as a benefit and a nutritional commodity, and one that is not just about a food system producing quantity over quality? Most importantly, what is the role of culture to build social and economic capital that enhances our health, our well-being, and our resiliency? How we feed the future was the challenge our founder, Chef Massimo Bottura, sought to shed light on in 2015. For him, feeding the future was clear in terms of numbers. At the time, we produced enough food for 700, sorry about that. At the time, we produced enough food to feed 7.5 million people on the planet, but we wasted 33% of it. And most of the world's food comes from households, representing 630 million tons of food loss. That's at least 1 billion servings of food wasted in homes every year, the equivalent of providing 1.3 million meals per day for all people suffering from hunger. Food loss and waste also generates between 8 and 10% of the greenhouse gas emissions. In this contrast with 783 million people suffering from hunger and at least 1/3 facing food insecurity. The problem is not one of quantity for us, but culture. How could we waste knowing well that millions of people did not have enough to eat? And beyond just feeding people, what does the toll isolation takes on humanity and our ability to thrive? In 2015, Massimo received an invitation to the Universal World Exposition with the theme Feeding the Planet, Energy for Life. And at the invitation was a request that many celebrated chefs would receive to come and cook at Expo for VIP dinners. But to be clear, Massimo was no ordinary chef. At the time, he'd already received 3 Michelin stars, and his famed restaurant, Osteria Francescana, had been named the world's #1 restaurant. Together, he and Lara took the Expo invitation and its theme as an opportunity to utilize their voices, learnings, and successes to bring awareness to the devastating effects of food loss and waste and social isolation, both on the planet and humanity. It was challenges that represented 2 sides of the same coin, reflecting the great abundance and scarcity that thrives in our society. Their crazy idea at the time was to imagine a social project, a reimagining, if you will, of the traditional soup kitchen into a place of creativity, sustainability, ecological design, and service with dignity. A shift in how we welcome those most vulnerable from the periphery and those that are often marginalized into a place of belonging and opportunity. And instead of creating a temporary pop-up on the Expo campus, they convened the local community and our partner Caritas to find a space outside to emphasize what feeding the planet really means for those marginalized. In an old abandoned theater in the Greco neighborhood close to Milan, Centro would become the home of the Refettorio. With the help of designers and artists, the walls would breathe life into a new, calm, beautiful aesthetic. And the project would open for a daily full meal service, the kitchen rescuing the inevitable food waste from the World Exposition, giving a second meaningful life to what excess, surplus, and imperfect ingredients could be, returning both the environmental, economic, and social value back into the local community, saving more than just food, returning the human capital, water, and energy that went into that production. These humble ingredients were transformed through the culinary creativity of more than 60 visiting chefs who put their knowledge and culture into creating delicious meals, multi-course meals served with hospitality around a shared table. And our guests who come from a variety of lived experiences, homelessness, substance abuse, loss of work, loss of a loved one, a refugee, those that are elderly would be invited to sit, rest, share, and enjoy moments that could open their eyes to the possibilities of life. That project would go on to be named the Refettorio, a Latin word for reficere, meaning to make or restore, where waste, scarcity, and isolation would become abundance, hope, and dignity for all, where it would lift cooking as an act of love. And initially, the project in Milan was only intended to last during Expo. But after a few months, Refettorio Ambrosiano quickly became rooted in the local community, managed by volunteers and named for and operated by our local partner, Caritas Ambrosiana. The curiosity of a chef at the time, the imagination of artists, and the dedication of a community stirred up this energy that has now led to a movement of people, public, and private organizations coming together to develop open refectorios around the world, each utilizing these three initial tenets that Massimo and Lara borrowed from their restaurant experience: the quality of ideas, the power of beauty, and the value of hospitality to create social change. 10 years later, our network is now 12 refectorio projects spanning across 9 countries. That's 12 different and unique nonprofits that we've partnered with to adapt the model to their local communities while also helping to amplify their existing work and impact. The Refettorio network, we say, is globally inspired and locally rooted, where we're working together with that same mission to prevent food waste and social isolation, with a vision to also bring about a socially responsible culture that leads to a thriving and healthy planet and people. As I look forward and we move on into the work of our efforts today, it's across 3 pillars: advocacy, activism, refectorio development, and the building of creative exchange among our refectorio partners. As I mentioned, statistics are what they are, but it's often not our guests who are wasting, it's us at home. And we feel it's just as important to continue to create that awareness that Massimo and Lara launched in 2015 with their first project called Refettorio Ambrosiano. And so we spend a lot of our time building global campaigns, creating events and education to shift consumer behaviors. We build and work across community acts of practice to build advocacy and policy formation that helps us to ensure the right to food and just practices. Massimo also always underscores that we're not a charity project, but one of a cultural initiative. Through cooking, we raise collective consciousness, bring people together to taste, discover, and learn, and inspire action, whether that's at home, in work, or in our communities. After all, a meal is an invitation to enjoy, to give, and to receive. Our refectorio development have become hubs for social and economic empowerment. And rather than focus on that initial model, what have we seen after 10 years? We've seen wasted food being replaced by the development of strong local food recovery networks, sustainable sourcing models, and the implementation of reduction and recycling strategies, where imperfect food surplus is now about 100% food utilization, climate conscious menus, upcycling and new product development, innovation and technology. Where food assistance just doesn't fill the belly, it's about prioritizing dignity and choice versus charity, where a meal nourishes more than just whole health, it's about well-being and our social experience, where the dining experience can establish trust and build agency for people in need, and where beauty opens the door to possibility, bringing the community together, stimulating conversation and curiosity, and offering radical hospitality. Our projects also offer education and training today, which build life skills and restoration, pathways to employment. And culture is not just shared at the table through the recipes that are made, but it's through our guest chefs, our ambassadors, our hospitality friends, and our volunteers. The lived experiences that we learn from our beneficiaries and the designers and artists who beautify the walls that we live in. Massimo has said each time that I visit one of these places, I ask myself, how powerful can a meal be? I mean, sitting around the same table, immersed in a space of art and design and beauty, sharing a meal, a good one, creating, stimulating human exchange. All this happens in front of a simple soup made with ingredients otherwise wasted. Indeed, how powerful a meal can be. And 10 years later, our 12 projects with another 4 in development have created collective actions, helping to save more than 2,393 tons of food, serving more than 3.7 million meals to more than 1,400,000 guests. And that's with the dedicated support of 170,000 guest chefs, volunteers working daily. One of the things that I wanted to do is take you inside one of our refectorios to really help magnify this just at the close. On September 29, 2020, Global Day of International Food Loss and Waste, our founder Massimo became a UN Goodwill Ambassador. This past year, one of the 17 UN SDG advocates. Those SDG goals are embedded into the work we do every day. And I thought it would be nice to take you on this visit with Massimo and Inger as they actually visit Refettorios Harlem that just launched in the middle of the pandemic 2 years ago.
So Massimo, you have these refettorios across the world, and here we are in Harlem. So how have you seen these after you open them? How has that changed behavior or the social setting in the community?
You know, our projects are in the most neglected neighborhoods. We were inspired by Pope Francis, who said, don't do it in the center of the city. Go in the periphery. Those are the dark places where they need light. You know, we are serving good and healthy food. And in the beginning, there was a lot of resistance. But once they understood that we were there for them, they realized that these places are their places. Once you give them the opportunity to be fed with the power of hospitality, people are living full of good vibes. I grew up in a very social place, and you have grandmothers and mothers, they care about, you know, sitting around the table and eat a proper meal, healthy food, share, not waste anything. It's very easy to teach to your staff, your large family, because we are producing food for 12 billion people. 800 million people, they don't have anything to eat. And we waste 33% of what we produce. Most of that, you know, we use water, electricity, human capital to produce food, stress the planet, and then we burn it. And we are become one of the first cause of climate change. So first of all, the project is about fighting food waste and social isolation through beauty. Grazie, thank you very much.
Thanks so much. And as you reflect all on the concept of social gastronomy today, I just wanted to invite you to consider the role of sustainability in gastronomy. Food is more than sustenance. It's our connection to our land. It's our ancestors' story. It's our ethnic traditions, and it's our identity. The prevention of food loss and waste can help provide hunger relief and move us to challenge how and what we produce, and drive much larger systems food change that we all need to improve the food accessibility, affordability, and quality. So with that, I'm looking forward to some questions, and thank you all for participating today and listening.
Thank you, Jill. Wow, that was so much meaningful content, and I don't know, I stopped writing down quotes, but my colleague who's doing the PR, there are so many quotes we will use on our blog. Wow. All right. So, Questions. Again, wie vorher auch, wer Fragen hat, bitte einmal vorstellen. Was möchtet ihr gerne von Jill wissen? Was interessiert euch? Worauf könnte sie noch mehr eingehen? Sie hat jetzt schon weit ausgeholt, aber vielleicht auch im Vergleich zu dem Vortrag vorher. All right, we have one question. Okay. Yeah, was that your arm? Did you want to ask a question? The mic is coming from behind. Yeah, it's here. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I wonder where the...
who are you and where you come from? Yeah.
I'm Viviana and I work in Prinzessinnengarten-Kollektiv.
An urban gardening project in Berlin, one of the oldest ones.
Wonderful.
I was wondering where the wasted food is sourced from. Is it directly from the farmers? Is it from supermarkets? And I also wonder, I mean, we're in Germany here and there's a lot of regulations about food and if you're allowed to sell it. And I'm wondering how you overcome these challenges or barriers. And I guess also where the money is funded to renovate the places, maintain the places? I guess you said that a lot of people are volunteers, but still some money must be flowing. I wonder where it comes from.
For sure. I just put my contact information up, so if anybody's had it. And another quote for you there from Massimo. Thanks, Vivian. It's a great question. So let me start with the first on our sourcing model. Our stakeholder community for sourcing includes everything that you referenced, from small to large farms, the logistics and wholesale distribution process directly from food manufacturers, and from the grocery retail sector. And that's true across all of the projects across 9 countries. There are limitations on how much we can source depending on where we are in the countries that we serve. Our goal is to not feed off of the traditional food banking system, but to reach into those particular areas where we are seeing ongoing waste, because there's always ongoing surplus. So grocery and retail tends to sit at the top of our priority of sourcing. And then as we work our way towards the farm and the artisanal makers and the fisheries and the ranchers, we're working on not just rescuing and saving food that is imperfect and surplus, but how can those imperfect ingredients from the farmer, how can we reinvest in them? So we might be sourcing and getting donations from grocery retailers and food manufacturers. And then at the farm level, we're really working to try to raise money and capital that puts back into our farm system. Obviously, as a charitable model, there are challenges we feel in perpetuating the cycle of charity, especially if we're trying to invest in urban agriculture, invest in sustainable food systems, and supporting small local farmers and indigenous communities. It's not just taking, you need to invest in them. And then in terms of the question that you asked about how we're sourced, so every Refettorio doesn't just operate from volunteers. They have full teams, culinary teams and managers, social service workers, and program and community partnership coordinators. And they're paid, and we pay livable wages. So of course, these projects don't just take money to build in the capital. To design them and create the beauty costs money, and to run them costs money. And in fact, our meals, because they're multi-course, are not the average of what you see coming from the US and around the world. You know, €1 feeds a family of 10. Our costs are triple, quadruple that. So we have a diversified revenue model. We spend a lot of time creating space to develop both corporate, public and private partnerships, corporate funding, government, municipality funding, and as well, we utilize the Refettorio spaces to host events that are open, not just for those in need, but where people who have financial resources to give can give back to the community. And that's everything from hosting a chef event to weddings to corporate parties that are mutually beneficial for everybody involved.
Thank you. We have another question.
We do have another question from the other side. The question is, how much does the food cost for people visiting, and are guests coming back on a regular basis?
All these meals that we provide to our guests at the Refettorio are for free. We serve on average 100 to 150 people for lunch or dinner service. We have some doing breakfast as well, and some are doing both. And then many of them provide a takeaway meal for another 80 to 150 people. So on average, one Refettorio might be serving 5 to 6 days a week, upwards of 300 meals, and those are all for free. So the fundraising plan that I mentioned before is strategic, and it's really important. The cost of a meal for us ranges from raw food costs, anywhere from €3 to €6. But when you add a loaded labor cost, almost as if you were operating a restaurant, the costs are anywhere from 12 to €20. So just in terms of paying fair wages, we believe in our model, and to be inclusive and to be just, you have to feed that through the entire pipeline.
Hey, I'm Richard. I'm privately doing food saving in my free time, and over the past 3 years I've saved around 4 tons of food. And I was curious to know, when we save food from the traditional supermarket system, it's a lot of highly processed food. Like when you say food from this kind of supermarket system, do you take everything or do you just take what you can use? I'd be curious about that because there's so much more food waste than just vegetables.
Yes, we fight against the industrialized food system, I guess I could say. And Richard, congratulations on what you've saved. That's amazing at home. It's very true that there is a process within our global charitable model where any excess is donated. And the first thought often in the recovery of food surpluses from landfill that all of that food should just go to people in need. And we don't believe that. We believe that we need to prioritize the vulnerable people also suffer greatly from chronic diseases. And so we need to protect their overall health. So our food sourcing model also elevates a standard around what kinds of foods that we recover, we make, and we serve. We're not just recycling foods to put them into bellies, as I mentioned during the presentation. Our goal is to provide nutrition and health and hopefully bridge and build access for those that are most vulnerable to be able to have better food. So we deny food. It's one reason why in some cities where we have refettorios, we don't participate in certain food recovery networks because they are perpetuating that cycle. And I think it's really important. I mean, I know you're going to have a great presentation coming up from the social gastronomy movement. We're big fans of and have a partnership with one of the collective founders down in Rio. And I think this is a great point to think about how both social gastronomy and sustainable gastronomy bridge to one another. And the right to food is not just about feeding people. It includes dignity, access. It includes the ability to live well. And that doesn't mean pushing industrial food to people because it's good for tax benefit. I'm speaking very liberally with my comments, but I think that's our main agenda in that consumer advocacy is helping people understand sometimes what they put on their plate and what you do at home can kind of help to shift the system so that it changes for people who have less of a voice.
Thank you for your openness here. We have one. No, we do, okay. that was the last question. Okay, one last question, but then we need to continue because we're already behind schedule.
Hi, I'm Talita. I'm from a researcher from Hurt School. I was wondering, how do you select the people that can dine in their restaurants? Because you have a limited amount of, and it's for free. So I imagine that there is a demand that is higher than the ability to solve. So how is the selection?
Sure. Through the design and the development of our projects, it's not just about seeking out and finding artists and designers to beautify the space, but it's also doing a lot of community engagement work where the community who is already providing services can provide feedback and we can build a strong social safety network. And so when we open our doors, most often our projects are low barrier or no barrier, which means that anyone can drop in. Or we work through a community referral process where those partnerships and the understandings and learnings that we go through the engagement workshops, if we cannot and we don't have space, for example, we don't have a seat at a table for someone who's hungry or someone comes at a different hour than we might be offering a service, we can navigate the system to make sure that they have another place where they can get the services that they need. We also do ongoing work with all of our beneficiaries to learn about what their needs are. So while we're a no barrier, low barrier, and often a drop-in location, yes, we can be overcome with lines. And so we spend a lot of time in engaging our beneficiaries to be part of the process, which actually allows us to minimize the overflow and redirect people before we get into a place where we have to turn people away. And that's a big part of my recommendation for anybody looking to do any sort of social project. You have to include those that you're serving from the very start in the process of building, and you have to ensure that you're building with your community. You're not coming in to design and develop something new. You're hopefully filling a gap that builds space for everybody to grow.
Thank you. Also a little anecdote from our team. One of our team members, Patrick, he visited and I believe also worked one evening in the Paris Refettorio, and he was amazed also by how many volunteers are also standing in line to be working in the Refettorios, and that is something rare as well. Something that we will take up on take up in the discussion later. And I also had the chance to visit the Refettorio in Milan. And was amazed by the beauty of the space. So yeah, just as a little anecdote from our team.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for taking the time and for dialing in all the way from the US. And now we're gonna hear from the last speaker. Yeah, this is yours.